Good morning. This is Valerie Leonard. I am the founder of Nonprofit Utopia. I want to welcome you to today's live stream. For those of you who don't know, this is Resilience Month in the Nonprofit Utopia community. So all month long, we're going to be focusing on ways that we can overcome adversity, and we're going to be speaking today with John Emenecker. In fact, John is one of our members, and this was his idea. And since it was his idea, we are relying very heavily on John to help us develop content, and he's going to be a co host for as many of these live streams as he is available. And today he's going to be in the hot seat. We're kicking off Resilience Month with today's live stream. All right, so just a little bit about John. He is a peer support specialist with Pillars in the Appleton, Oshkosh, Nema area in Wisconsin. He has a BS degree in journalism from the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, and he has a master's degree in management information systems from DePaul University in Chicago. He has several certifications from Transformation Academy as a life coach, helping clients to gain confidence and find their purpose in life and to find happiness. John is in the process of starting his own organization, the Resilience House. This will either be a nonprofit or a benefit corporation. And the Resilience House will be a safe, non-judgmental, supportive virtual community for those living with mental health, substance abuse addiction, and in the future, any form of adversity to teach resilience and support those faced with adversity. John will be a co-host, as I indicated before, on our Resilience live streams and will be leading a workshop on resilience later this month. So good morning, John. Thank you so much. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Valerie, for having me.
Yes. And before we get started, can you share for our listening audience what you mean by resilience?
Yeah, by resilience, I've got a few definitions here. One of them I learned by watching Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant in LinkedIn Learning course. But resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It has also been defined as the ability to bounce back from difficult situations and trauma. And the one that I really like from Adam Grant is what psychologists learned through that research was that there's a third possibility, that in some ways people are not able to just bounce back, they're able to bounce forward to grow from the difficult experiences in their lives. So that's really what I mean by resilience. I think later I'm going to be sharing some stories of my own personal resilience, but that's really the reason why I want to create Resilience House, is I want it to be a place where people can go when they're faced with adversity, like COVID, mental health, substance use, the loss of a loved one, cancer. There are many adversities people face in life, and I want to teach and coach and encourage them to be resilient.
Okay, great. Now, you mentioned in the Nonprofit Utopia community that you're a stage 3 colon cancer survivor. What was the experience like, and what are some of the things that got you through?
Yeah, back in 2000, early part of 2017, I was having challenges, and I went to see my primary care doctor, and he suggested, or we did quite a few, actually 3 colonoscopy preps. And he was hoping to solve the problem, but it really didn't. He referred me to a gastroenterologist. She ordered a colonoscopy, and the person who did the procedure found a 22 centimeter cancer tumor in the sigmoid part of my colon. So it was a pretty big tumor. I think centimeters, I figured out, it came out to be about 15.5 inches.
Wow.
So it had been in my system for quite a while. And my dad was with me. He was shocked. I was kind of like person that just kind of took things in and I
Mhm.
said, okay. And then I wanted to find out what could be done. And he called my surgeon, Dr. Wagner, and they were concerned that the colon would block, or the tumor would block the colon. So they scheduled me to be in surgery 2 weeks later. So on
Mhm.
September 1st, 2017, I had a surgery, um, and I had 5 days of recovery. And some of the things that I went through is they found that the tumor had ruptured the wall of the colon and had spread to other parts of my body. They looked
Mhm.
at lymph nodes. They found signs of cancer. So the oncologist recommended that that I do radiation. I did almost a month of radiation, and then I did 6 months of chemo, or 12 rounds of chemo.
How?
And I guess some of the things that I went through, as far as I was sensitive to the cold, and I also had neuropathy of the hands and the feet. But I think you mentioned before about what the things that were that got me through cancer. Is I posted out on my Facebook page what I experienced, kind of like what Sandberg did with her husband, and I received an incredible amount of support. Um, and also in cancer, the way that they celebrate a person's success is when I got done with radiation. Radiation technician and the person in charge, who took a picture of in a video of me standing in front of a bell, and I rang the bell. And the same thing with chemo too. At the end of my chemo treatments, and I saw other people do this too, go up and ring a bell, supporting, recognizing that the fact that they had finished their chemo treatments. And I did the same thing. I had a lot of people clapping, a lot of people hugging, and a lot of people celebrating my last day of chemo. Um, and then I got a chance to do a PET scan, found that there were 0 signs of cancer in my body, and had a chance to ring a very big bell. So that's one of the things that I've found to be incredibly important when it comes to people facing resilience, is that support.
Mhm.
I was fortunate in that I had an incredible amount of support. I thought about doing the same thing because I was going to teach people how to overcome social anxiety. I was going to use the same method because that's something that people really don't. I don't think really have as much support with mental health. This
Mhm.
was a while ago, so things that may have changed. But I went out and I bought my own bell
I like that. Like.
that I ring whenever a person does something well and meets their social anxiety. I had a chance to ring the bell for someone. He had managed to go out and meet staff and have a chance to play basketball, and that was actually very challenging for him. So I had a chance to ring a bell for him. So that's a very important part of resilience, and that's really the thing that got me through cancer. And that is something that I really want to bring to the resilient selves, is the ability to not only learn about how to overcome adverse situations, also to go through them, but also to celebrate times when people do succeed.
Okay, so as I listened to you, one of the things that stood out to my mind, you mentioned that your dad was somewhat upset, but you were the one who was, I guess, more stoic, for lack of a better word. So it sounds to me like mindset might make a huge difference. It sounds to me like you didn't panic immediately. You seem to have started immediately trying to look at your options and try to take control of the situation. Is that
Right.
fair to say?
I think my dad was shocked. I just kind of just took it in, and then I just listened to the person who did the procedure, and he explained everything. He did actually a really good job. And then my next question is, okay, well, not my next question, but I asked what can we do about this? And that's when he
Mhm.
told me that he would call my surgeon, and they scheduled the surgery 2 weeks for where because later, because they were concerned that the colon or the tumor would block the colon. So mindset is a very important part of it too, in building your resilience, getting to the point where you feel comfortable with a difficult situation. Maybe not comfortable, but accepting it
Yeah.
and then facing it. And later, when I after surgery, when I saw my mom, it really did start to impact I really started to figure out just exactly what this had done to me. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started to feel a little emotional, and I did talk to her about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mindset is a very important skill set to have, and that's something that will help when it comes to building resilience.
Okay. And it sounded too like another important thing that got you through was celebrating your wins.
Yeah, it did. I'm glad we did that, because when you're going through something like this, you're not really sure you have a lot of uncertainty. You're not sure how it's going to affect your body, with going through radiation and chemo, and then getting a chance to meet with the radiation technicians at the end and ring a bell, and also the same thing with chemo. This is really just also celebrate the successes, knowing that you're facing your adversity. In my case, my cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and you're with other people, and you're succeeding in your journey.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So, John, you mentioned that you also were resilient when you had to conquer social anxiety as well as severe depression. What were some of the strategies that you used to get you through that particular situation?
Yeah, for a long time there, I really did think quite a bit about past situations. That's really what led to my depression. Also, not really sure how to face them or how to overcome them. Um, and later, I learned techniques pretty much through a treatment program, to help me with my depression. I learned concepts like mindfulness, or just staying in the moment, staying in the present instead of worrying about the past, or thinking about the past and worrying about the future. Um, Also, guided meditations helped me out quite a bit. Deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, especially with social anxiety. I didn't think this would work, but I did apply the skills. Like I would take, people didn't see me doing this, but I would take 3 deep breaths before speaking to someone, and that calmed me down, that centered me, and made the conversation a little bit more comfortable. Um, and then, yeah, these are more anxiety skills, but I think that really, when you're faced with adversity, you really have to throw a lot of this at the challenge that you're facing. I
Mm-hmm.
used a combination of all these skills in order to work on my social anxiety. But one particular group, an anxiety group that was led by a person that I really admire and that I worked with, um, she taught me these skills, and also cognitive behavioral therapy thought records, or analyzing my past situations, social situations, what my mood was like, what my automatic thoughts were before I went into the situation,
Mm-hmm.
and then also, balancing my thoughts. First of all, figuring out when they did happen, when they didn't happen, because a lot of times, a lot of these situations are just, things that you think about. They're
Right.
not necessarily true thoughts, and then I balance them, and then over several months, applying all these skills, also the exposure hierarchy, putting myself in increasingly more challenging social situations, helped me
Mm-hmm.
out quite a bit, to the point where I was able to get up and speak apply all these skills, and speak at a Toastmasters presentation. That was very high up on my exposure hierarchy list. You're seeing me at a pretty good time in my life. Before, I was pretty quiet. I really didn't talk much, and I thought quite a bit about the past.
Mm-hmm.
But these anxiety skills, and depression skills, when applied, can help with resilience too. Because I just thought that, with resilience, you do have to put yourself into these situations, into increasingly more challenging social situations. So exposure hierarchy may help when you become more resilient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is awesome. And I think too, this is really important for any nonprofit leader or any person in a leadership role, and just us individual as we navigate, life's turns. So thank you so much for sharing. And speaking of professional development, you indicated that you are currently being resilient in your role as a peer support specialist for those experiencing homelessness. How does that work? So, how do you transfer the experiences you had on the personal level to the professional environment?
Yes. I'm still working on this. This will be my second week as a peer support specialist. I did have some challenges in the beginning because people really didn't understand what a peer support specialist was. And I think they didn't really understand and were a little bit confused about it.
Hmm.
So I'm going to really work on explaining what that role is and helping them when it comes to possible depression or anxiety when it comes to homelessness.
Hmm.
Um, I'm also going to be helping them when it comes to looking for work and also looking for housing too. So I'm going to try and fit all of that together and really help them by supporting them. And um, I'll be doing more as an advocate for them. And also, I want to teach them about resilience too. That's another important skill set that I think that they really need. Um, and literally listening to them and learning what their challenges are. Because as an advocate, the very first thing that you can do is listen to someone. Um, and that's one of the skills that I learned in certified peer specialist training,
Hmm.
is active listening, and then
Hmm.
also showing empathy, and then finally helping them help themselves. And that's going to be very important when it comes to finding work, overcoming depression, facing anxiety, um, and eventually, hopefully, transitioning to an affordable house.
Okay, that's great. And as I listened to you talk, I was thinking, these are some the same skills that you would need as a supervisor or leader, of an organization. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, and I noticed too that when you were posting in the community, you said that it took decades for you to feel resilient through your own mental health challenges. What was the turning point for you?
Yeah, I had posted on Facebook a while ago on my profile about my own experience with depression and anxiety. I did receive support for some people, but some people I kind of lost. They weren't as they really didn't like it that I posted it out there. So I had to face that, and then really over the years, I thought quite a bit about that, and also, um, well, I have social anxiety, so I always had that fear of being negatively judged by others.
Hmm.
So I had to work on that too, but I had to stop thinking about my own perceived past mistakes. Some of them were real, but most of them were perceived, and really face the self stigma that I got from those situations.
Hmm.
And really, what the turning point was is I actually had been not only the certified peer specialist program, but I
Hmm.
was also with people who were facing mental health challenges, um, and they helped me out quite a bit. Again, having a support network in place is extremely important. But then I also had to do a lot of the work too, because
Right.
earlier in my life, I had met with a person who said that I would have to change my thinking or rewire my thinking. And I didn't think that was possible at the time. I really had to work at it. I really had to apply these skills, but I was able to change my thinking. And that has really made a difference. And that's really the reason why I became a certified peer specialist. That's really why I'm interested in resilience. And that's really the reason why I want to hopefully, in my way, make a difference in other people's lives by helping them help themselves.
Okay. Now, are there any assessments that people can take, at home to try to get through this, or do you recommend other coping strategies?
Um, the coping strategies that I recommend would be there's one like self care. I don't think this is something that people often think about or take
Right.
seriously, but spending time really taking care of themselves. Like for me, I'm just getting back and exercising, but I do exercise quite a bit.
Hmm.
Um, and also reading, listening to music, just taking time for themselves to work on what they're facing is very important. So self-care, and then all the other skills that I mentioned too, like mindfulness, to become a mindfulness practitioner. Also developing a strong support network with family, friends, coworkers, um, your members of the nonprofit, your board. All of that's actually very important.
Mm-hmm.
As far as assessments, um, to learn more about yourself, there are self-assessments out there. Myers-Briggs, I took that. That gave me a better understanding of how the way I am and how I face situations. Also, we did it as a team, so I got to learn more about my team members.
Mm-hmm.
The other personality tests out there that can be helpful. I can't think of them right now, but if I the DISC is
Right.
another helpful one. Um, and then if you are thinking that you have social anxiety, there is a social anxiety disorder assessment out there. A lot of those same questions are also in Myers-Briggs, especially to determine if you're an introvert and an extrovert, even though they are not really related,
Mm-hmm.
because introversion is really just finding energy within yourself, but social anxiety is more having anxiety when it comes to speaking to others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you mentioned that you felt at one point that it was probably a mistake to share on Facebook. You felt that the place wasn't always safe. Do you know of any safe online environments?
Yeah, the Resilience House.
Oh yeah,
um, the Resilience House will be one.
yeah. You
Also,
put the
yeah, anxiety groups. There are some really good depression and anxiety groups that I belong to. Um, you can be somewhat anonymous there, and really tell people how you're feeling, and you can work through quite a few things. That's really how I met the person that I rang the bell for. Was on the social anxiety, loneliness, and friendship support group. I was able to help him. I also belong to some other groups. But outside of Facebook, though, is the reason why I want to build a resilience house is I want to create a very safe, supportive, non-judgmental environment for people. And sometimes you see that on Facebook, and Facebook actually does a really good Facebook or admins for these groups will actually do a really good job providing that kind of environment. But sometimes it gets carried away, and people are really just looking to meet other people for um, yeah, nefarious reasons. So I
right.
want to create a very safe place, and I think that I can do that in my own environment. And I'm looking at using Mighty Networks.
Okay, awesome. And we use Mighty Networks too on Nonprofit Utopia. I love it. I love it. Alrighty, so let's talk about stigma. What advice would you give to people who are afraid of the stigma of mental health challenges or other challenges of dealing uh, with challenges? I guess with setbacks. You know, in our society, we're looked at as weak if we have to seek help, right? Um, but how do you overcome that stigma?
Yeah, realizing that the stigma is out there, awareness. Also, as far as me, when I face the stigma, I tend to then internalize it, and it
Mm-hmm.
became self stigma where I believed a lot of what they were saying. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in order to really face that, I worked with a very supportive network of people, um, especially with through NAMI, but there are other organizations out there too that can be
Mm-hmm.
very helpful.
Great.
Um, but when it comes to stigma, yeah, that's something that you might have to face because I also belong to some political posts out on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, and I see people when they post out there that this because these people believe in something, they have this mental disorder, they have this mental health issue, and they really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think really just raising awareness when it comes to the stigma, and not only just mental health, but other stigma people face
Mm-hmm.
is actually very important. And also creating, this is what I'm also looking at doing within the Resilience House is creating an ally program. So I
Mm-hmm.
think allyship for this issue, mental health, is very important.
Okay, that's great. So, do you find yourself, having having to reframe, I guess, certain issues, so that in your mind it's not a stigma. Because I know with myself, I've gone through a number of sticky situations and I felt shameful. Um, I didn't want to discuss it. I wanted to keep everything to myself. I'm like, if everybody knows what's going on, what would they think of me? They'll think I'm a weak person. They'll think I'm a stupid person. They'll say that I should have known better, blah, blah, blah. Did you ever find yourself thinking those thoughts and then having to reframe the situation?
Yeah, I did. Um, and that's really the reason why I want to change the focus to resilience. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a word that people understand. In a way, it's a more positive attitude when it comes to facing stigma,
Mm-hmm.
is to be resilient. Yeah, it is really a mindset thing too. It took me a while to really change the way that I think about stigma, um, and also finding very people you can trust, or being in a support group where you can have your anonymity and talk about these issues. Um, Also, in some cases, not only support groups, but also seeing a therapist, that helped me out quite a bit. Um, also, there are also organizations out there, like there's WISE here in Wisconsin, that faces mental health stigma, teaches people how to face mental health stigma.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. So you're going to be starting the Resilience House, and I think you mentioned, earlier, why you wanted to start it. But for those who are just joining us, what made you want to start the Resilience House?
Yeah, the Resilience House. Because I was looking for a different way. Because sometimes people ask me how I'm doing mentally, and it's like, yeah, I'm doing well. I can think. And so I've also faced the stigma, and I really wanted to change the way that people think about this, about their adversity. And I want people to become resilient. I want them to be able to face the adversity, learn from it, and I think even grow from it too, if it's possible. Um, and that's really the reason why I started the Resilience House. Resilience House. It's going to be a virtual community. Maybe at first maybe I will do, will teach what I'll be doing in the workshop later this month to people outside of the Resilience House, like in person.
Mhm.
But right now, I figure that this is a good place for people to learn to become resilient. So that's really the reason, my own personal passion for changing the way that people look at adversity, and teach them how to become resilient and provide that safe, supportive environment for them as they work at becoming resilient.
Okay, great. Thank you. So now let's talk about your mission, and then you can also demonstrate your model. I understand you want to share the
Yeah,
business model. Okay.
my mission. I don't have an actual mission statement yet, but I do want to create a vision and a mission statement. My
Mhm.
vision statement would probably be, to teach people how to build resilience in their life to face adversity.
Mhm.
And then the way that I would accomplish that through my mission statement would be the Resilience House, and that would be providing a safe, non-judgmental, supportive community for those who teach people how to be resilient, and then also support them in their journey to become resilient when faced with adversity. So that's what I'm looking to do with the Resilience House. That's kind of my mission statement. I'm still working on it,
Yeah, it's
but that's my vision, my
beautiful.
mission.
So,
Yeah, and if you'd like, I share my
yeah,
business model? Yeah, I'm pretty
yeah.
excited about it. Let me see if I can share here.
Okay, great.
You might see my whole screen at first, but I'm gonna go
Okay.
to see if I can find it. Okay, I think I'm sharing my screen. I think, okay, does everyone see the business model now?
I don't. Oh, you know what? I need to bring it up. I was
Okay.
about to say I don't see it. There's a reason I didn't see it. Okay, got it.
Okay, so this is the business model. Over in the far right, I'm going to start there. The customer segments I've identified.
Okay, I'm going to see I can make this bigger. Can you make it bigger so people can see it? And if not, I'm gonna remove us so it can cover the screen.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just in
Okay,
Adobe Acrobat, so
okay, all right. Let's not. I'm gonna see if I can just have us on this. Just have the presentation. Just bear with me.
okay.
That wasn't quite what I was expecting. Okay, I got you solo. Now if I can get the okay, and
Okay.
let me remove the banner so people can see. All right, I think that might be a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to Valerie earlier, and she recommended using the business model canvas to kind of show my future board members the direction I'm thinking about going. And that's really the reason why I created the business model canvas. And this is just the way it is right now. This is version 1. As I work with it with board members, I plan on making some changes. But so far, starting from the far right, we have customer segments. The two that I'll be targeting first are mental health and COVID. But there's also substance use, the loss of a loved one, hardship, adversity, cancer. There are many adversities people go through where they need to be resilient. Um, so those are the customer segments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then over here, the customer relationships. This is really the type of relationship I want to establish with members of the Resilience House. Is I want them to feel that they're in a safe, non-judgmental, supportive community. And first, it'll be just me, but eventually, I'd like to include other trusted, certified peer specialists. I'm thinking about calling them resilience evangelists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then down here in the channels I'll be using. Thinking about using Mighty Networks because it's a relative. I like it in Nonprofit Utopia. I've
Mm-hmm.
also liked the Mighty Networks presentation that Gina did. So
Okay, so can we stop right here? So when we talk about channels, we're talking about what? How are you these what types of channels? What do you mean, for people who might not know what channels?
yeah, channels, kind of a mix between ways that people can find out about the Resilience House and how the Resilience House how it will be used. So
Got
like
it.
for example, for social media to kind of draw people's attention to the Resilience House and also when I get into partnerships, also partnering with nonprofits or organizations and creating marketing material for them to give to their members to find out more about the Resilience House.
Mm-hmm.
But so the marketing would be the social media, but the actual channels that people would use that be part of the Resilience House would be Mighty Networks where they can we build a community where they can share their experiences and learn about becoming more resilient.
Mm-hmm.
And then a Wix website would be kind of like the front door to the Resilience House, where people would come and they could see. This is also marketing too, but where people would be able to see or learn more about the Resilience House.
I got it. Thank you.
And then over here in value propositions, a person will feel resilient to be able to bounce back from difficult situations. I'm working on that because I know that there needs to be more value proposition there for them, but I want them to learn how to become more resilient when faced with adversity.
Okay, great.
Key activities is to build and manage the Mighty Network. I probably could just call it my community.
Right.
Um, the board leadership meetings, I see those as key activities. Um, the build and manage the community, that's more of like a daily activity. The board leadership meetings will be to make decisions and also to support the community. Um, and then build and manage courses because I'm thinking about using courses to teach people how to become resilient.
Mm-hmm.
Build and manage groups. So, for example, if a nonprofit wanted to join the Resilience House, they would have their own group where they could have their own members in there and where they could help them with their resilience.
No, I love it.
And then offer resilience support. That's a key activity. The key resources that will be used, since this will be a virtual community, is that the Resilience House will use the Mighty Networks and the Wix website, and then also certified peer specialists. The key partners so far are nonprofits, organizations, churches, so really anyone that wants to teach people how to become resilient. I'm thinking about even adding businesses to there because
Yeah.
for employees to teach them how to become resilient.
Yeah, that would be huge. I'm seeing more and more in the business literature, especially with COVID-19, the people needing to cope with the different changes, the loss they experience, and all that other stuff. So this is on the radar of large corporations as well.
Yes. Yeah, I'm seeing that too quite a bit. That's really where like the LinkedIn Learning is really focused on mostly, except for the one for Sheryl Sandberg and option B. That one is really focused mostly on teaching people how to be resilient at work.
Mm-hmm.
The cost structure, operational expenses, Mighty Networks, the Wix website, liability insurance, video conferencing, and then salaries for an executive director and a resilience evangelist starting out, and then marketing, and then other costs too in the future.
Okay.
And then the revenue streams I've identified so far, impact investors. That's really the reason why I want to enter Resilience House and COVID-wise. Why I'm focusing on COVID and mental health is hopefully to attract investment from impact investors, grants, donations, and membership fees too. So, for example, if a nonprofit wanted to use Resilience House, they could lease. Is that the right word? Lease or rent?
Yeah.
Rent a spot on the Resilience House for a year for an annual membership fee.
Yeah, I like that. I would add too maybe some consulting fees. You know, because I could, or workshop fees, or both.
Yeah, I can definitely add that because workshops, especially at corporations, but also out in the community, a low-cost workshop fee would be good for us to hopefully generate money. Also, one-on-one too. That's really that's you mentioned earlier about being a transformation academy coach.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
eventually like to focus on resilience and become a resilience coach.
Yep.
So offering one-on-one coaching on the site and also in person is also would also be a good revenue stream.
Yeah, and then over the long term, you could hire other coaches. But you know, we got to get the organization off the ground first, but that might be something to consider.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
So I'm going to stop my sharing and hey.
Okay. I like. Yeah, I had us on full screen because the writing was a little small. All right. So you have explained what programs you're going to offer. And before we go, I know you mentioned that you're looking for board members. So what qualities are you looking for your board members? And if there's anyone who's watching who might consider joining, how can they contact you?
I would like to have board members who have experience. I'm new to this. I'm learning quite a bit from Nonprofit Utopia and Valerie. Also, I do have one person, a certified peer specialist. I think she's worked with nonprofits before. But I'm really looking for someone with experience when it comes to being on a nonprofit board. Also, interest in resilience too, or the willingness to learn resilience, because that will be a very important part of the Resilience House. As far as time commitment, in the beginning, there might be some time commitment getting everything set up and ready to go. But in the future, maybe monthly board meetings. I'm looking at doing everything virtual, so you really can be anywhere. But really, what I'm looking for is people who have a willingness to learn resilience, have been resilient, are currently teaching resilience to others in some form, and who really want to be a board member and who want to have the time and the availability and the willingness to be on a nonprofit board.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So I think I've exhausted all the questions that I have. I don't know if there's anyone in the audience who has any questions, any comments. If so, please feel free to post in the chat room and we will respond. And while we're waiting for any comments or questions, John, I'm so glad that you could join us. I'm hoping you can be a co host for the other programs on resilience. I think you have a lot that you can offer in terms of insights for questions and discussion. So, again, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and look for my resilience workshop at the end of this month. I'm working on it right now,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and thank you for having me. And I look forward to all the posts and everything about resilience in the Nonprofit Utopia.
Okay, great. Alrighty, so there are no comments, and we've come to the end of our show. Again, I want to thank John Emenecker for being our wonderful guest. He's a wonderful member of the Nonprofit Utopia community. He is always participating in things like our strategic plan. He's very actively engaged in posting and responding to other people's posts, and he's leading the charge this month on resilience. Every day he has a really interesting and inspiring post, to share from his own experience or others' experience, and they're always inspiring. So if you're interested in joining the Nonprofit Utopia community, visit nonprofitutopia.mn.co and you can join our community, and you can also find out more about us on nonprofitutopia.com. All righty. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and take care. We'll see you on Friday when we talk to Vanessa McNorton. Vanessa will be sharing some of her experiences with coping. She's had near death experiences, and she is going to share how she bounced back from some very serious illnesses. All right. So I shall see you guys, well, we shall see you guys on Friday at 10 o'clock, same bat channel. All right. Take care. Bye bye.